everybody, and welcome to Let's Look at 7 Grand Steps. Those of you who have been following my channel for a longish time, or at least like 6 months or so, might remember that I played this game back when it was in its beta form, when it was nominated for an IGF Nuovo Award. And essentially what the IGF Nuovo Award is for the Indie Game Festival is an award that, if you'll allow me to be a little bit reductive, is awarded to games that are a little bit weirder, a little creative, a little strange, and 7 Grand Steps definitely qualifies as one of those. I could probably guarantee you that this is going to be one of the more interesting or unique games that you are going to see on Steam this year. And of course, this was greenlit as a result of getting that IGF nomination a little bit earlier. But I took a look at the beta. Now I'm here to take a look at the full version of this initial release. It's available on Steam for 15 bucks. Why don't we just get started here? So I've spent about 2 hours with the full build of 7 Grand Steps, and I've spent at least 3 or 4 hours, yes, I will overwrite my existing family, about 3 or 4 hours with the beta build back in, earlier this year, I think it was when I played it. But in case you didn't see that, we're going to go over all of the basics here, and I'll talk about, what basically the progression of the game as you go. So what this is essentially is a representation or a simulation of a family's life given the pressures of living in the Copper Age, so thousands of years ago. I hope I'm not making myself seem horribly historically inaccurate there. But it's represented, the pressures of the Copper Age for the life of a family through a board game, which is really interesting. This game's got a lot of physicality associated with it, even though it's digital. A lot of tangibility, even though it's digital. So it's a very unique game. It's basically like a board game based on historical life, and the way it kind of simulates those pressures of historical life in board game form is actually totally interesting. So the first thing that we kind of have a decision about here is what we want our family to be known for. What do we want our family to aspire to? So we could aspire to a heroic legend, to be brave, or a legend of discovery to possibly be smart, or an inventor, or a theologian, or something like that. Or we could try to become a legend of climbing in society, which is basically like becoming a high social rank or something, or becoming a politician or something. Why don't we go with a heroic legend to challenge the wheel here? Excuse me. Pardon me. So, heroic challenges are short adventures that can win huge rewards, but they often result in severe penalties. Yes, let's begin playing. I'll explain all of that, by the way. But basically, you can choose how to tailor your family and what kind of aspirations you want to shoot for, which is really interesting. This is the first time I've ever done the heroic legends, as far as I can remember. But anyway, this is the interface that we're going to be dealing with for almost the entirety of our time with 7 Grand Steps. There's a few important notes here. This inner ring is the ring in which we will be playing. These are basically, you can think of them like spaces on a Monopoly or board or something like that. So, basically we're going to get tokens, and we can play those tokens on our characters, and that'll allow them to move to the next available square with the same symbol that matches the token. For example, if we had a token with this bottle on it, and we played it on our husband is right here, he would move to this bottle one over here, and, vice versa if we played it on our wife. The other things you need to know, it's a turn-based game. Everybody gets 1 action per turn, and when your turn is over, you click this, and then the wheel will rotate, and if you're standing on this very last square, it'll rotate into the crocodiles, and characters on that square will die. So if you died, that's the end of your story, effectively, and you will start playing as your children if you have them, or it might actually be game over. I think if you have siblings, you would play as them as well. The other thing you need to know is these beads. Basically, our overall goal, our macro goal, if you will, is going to be to collect enough of these beads to fill up this meter. As you can see, we need 80 points. We can see how much they're worth. So each of those green ones is worth 6. A half green one is worth 3, as you might expect. So you want to get to those as soon as you can, and, get these legends written about you, and every time you get a legend written about you, I believe you move up another square. So, get one legend and you move up to this era, and so on and so forth. I've never actually made it past the second ring without my whole family dying, or just becoming so impoverished that I kind of lost interest. Now, the last thing you need to know, how do you make tokens? You make tokens by dragging these ingots into your character slot, and essentially what this allows you to do is, like, let's say we play one on our husband, then he will fall backwards to the next square with people on it, and they will, I guess, kind of just simulate cooperation. They will work together and create some ingots with one another. So we'll play through a generation or two of time with 7 Grand Steps, and I'll talk about my thoughts. This is a very interesting game. It's definitely a game that I think is going to be more of a niche title. I don't think this is a game that is going to appeal to everybody, but I think it's a game that's got a lot of really interesting things going for it. The problem might be that the price is a little bit too high for people looking for like an impulse purchase, but again, we'll talk about that as we get a little bit later here. So, we're going to have to balance our pressures. Obviously, we want to stay out of the realm of the crocodiles here. We also want to get these legend points, and we want to make tokens, but you can't do all 3 on a single turn because you only have 1 action. So what we might want to do now is just send, are we on an irrigation token? Yes. So we'll send our husband like as far away as he can possibly go, basically just so that he can have some breathing room so he can actually fall back and make tokens later. And then why don't we send our wife forward to this like brewing token here? So, you know, again, I'm trying to stay alive. That's, I guess, my primary objective. But beyond that, I also want to get these legend tokens, if at all possible. So we should probably have our husband fall back and make some tokens. He is making them with his wife, and this conveys a risk or the benefit of having a child, which is actually going to work out here. Now, you want to have children. It's almost a little bit Crusader Kingsy. There's positives and negatives to having children, as there are in real life. The positive is, you know, you have someone to pass on your knowledge and your resources to, and this is actually the player that you're going to play as once their generation ends, and generations tend to take about 15 minutes in my experience. Of course, that depends how fast you take your turns. I'm probably a little bit more of an impulsive player than most people, so maybe it'll take you a little bit longer. But the risk is that children, in order to get good, in order to develop and stay happy, they have to be constantly like fed tokens that improve their skills and keep their mood up effectively. So they're going to be a drain on our resources. You need to have kids if you want to keep playing the game, but at the same time, you don't want to have too many kids. The reason you kind of are sometimes at the whim of the random number generator is you want to like make tokens with your wife because you make more tokens with your wife than with these shadow people, which are effectively strangers. But if you make tokens with your wife, you know, there's always a chance that you might end up having a happy little accident that happens as a result. Sometimes, you know, you can get like 7 kids and you won't have enough resources to sustain them all, and then they'll start hating each other, and it'll have a negative impact on their development, and it'll be super deleterious. Anyway. That's neither here nor there yet, but as we move forward, it will become increasingly important. So our wife can now probably move forward a little bit. And why don't we feed an irrigation token to our son? And you can see that as we feed these tokens, I think it's a son anyway, but as we feed tokens, like we fed an irrigation token, each token is kind of tied to a specific skill from this era, I guess you could say. Why don't we show off the impetus of love? But basically what I wanted to say is like, this token is brewing, this token is irrigation, this token is masonry. Those are the only 3 we're dealing with now, but they will diversify as we get higher and higher up on these rings. But so every time we feed an irrigation token to Osahar here, he'll get a little bit better at irrigation, and, you know, vice versa for brewing and masonry. So we want him to be well-rounded, but also to have some overall, like, really strong skills, because these values indicate how many tokens he'll produce when he starts producing tokens as an adult, and what the odds are, the relative odds are, I guess, of producing each kind of token. So, for example, if I go to my Ket the Neighborly, our husband here, he's really good at irrigation, not so good at brewing and masonry. So he's really likely to create irrigation tokens when he makes tokens out of ingots. Same Selk the Loving is a good balance for him because she's really good at brewing and masonry. So this keeps us constantly like fairly well balanced, and we want to make sure that we can do that in future generations as well. Hopefully that made some sense here. So by playing masonry on Ket, because our husband and wife love each other, as you can see next to their name here, they have a special ability called the impetus of love, where if they land on the same square, they will actually, like one of them, the one who was moving, will leapfrog to the next available square like that. And this allowed us to get that legend point there. I'm just trying to think about how we want to do this now. Maybe we'll have our lady friend move to the next available, I don't know, maybe brewing? What do we have more of? Okay, we'll go to irrigation then. So we're not going to make any ingots on this turn, but this is okay because we only have one child, so it's fairly easy to provide for him right now. So you can kind of see the balance of how the game works right now. You've got to balance your desire to collect these legend points to make your family better off, versus A, not dying, and B, providing for your children so that in the event something happens to you, you have a good character to play as in the future. And you will inevitably be forced to play as one of our children as we move forward. Do I really not get a token for landing there? That's kind of shitty. We can play a brewing token, though, which might actually allow us to get a number of extra beads here. Yeah, that actually allowed us to get +7 legend points overall. And we can try to have another child if we want to. I don't want to do that right now. Instead, I'm very content to just leave this being a one-child family. I've never had like a Crusader Kings style like child die by accident or something like that. So it's good, at least in my opinion. It's objectively good to only have one child. And we're actually doing a really good job here of collecting these legend points. Now, it's probably a good idea to talk about what happens when you don't have any tokens to give to your players. So I gave a token to my son to make sure that he's continuing to develop, but our wife here does not have any tokens that we can insert into her, pun absolutely not intended. Or I guess euphemism not intended. Anyway, if adults don't get a token or don't take an action on a turn, then you get +1 legend point. So it's basically just like that's your bonus for not doing anything. It's not really a bonus, but it's kind of like a consolation prize for not being able to do anything. Kids are a little bit different. If you don't give kids a token, they'll play, which does help their development, but it doesn't help it nearly as much as getting a token. So you want to prioritize your kids, at least I think, when I play so far. So we get +1 legend point there, as you can see. We're going to let our turn move onwards. Obviously, the thing we're most concerned about now is actually making some tokens on this turn, because we are sadly lacking. And we ended up getting 4 there, which is not a ton, but it's not so bad either. And you know what? I'm actually going to have my wife fall a little bit further back, because she might be able to pick up that legend point a little bit later, and at the very least she'll be able to get a few more tokens that we can use to develop our son. How's he doing here? You know what? We're going to try to pump him full of irrigation goodness. So at the very least he'll have one skill that he's really good at moving forward, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to land on the— Ah, you bitch! I was really hoping to land on that legend point. Sadly, that was not possible. So what we could do here is have our husband kind of move backwards, and this will allow him to create some tokens from that ingot, and then we'll have our wife use the impetus of love to get just a little bit further, and then we can have her make tokens with him next turn to get even more. So we'll just try to get this guy up to an A+, or a AA, or a AAA in irrigation. And you can notice that our characters are getting basically objectively older as time goes on. So they'll start young, then they'll become middle-aged, and then they'll become senior citizens, and when they become senior citizens, their generation is going to soon— you'll see its end approaching, I guess, is one way to put it very politely. Let me just— oh, we did have a kid here. That's not so bad. We have enough resources to provide for this kid at this point. So let's just make this dude a little bit more well-rounded. We have a daughter now as well. How far forward can we send our husband? Pretty far forward. And then we can use impetus of love again on the next turn to get even further forward. But yeah, you'll notice, I promise, I'll point it out when the generation comes to an end, but there's a very visceral indicator of it as well, which is fine. We're doing fine on legend points. I would have liked to have gotten some more, but it's not going to be possible, I guess. She's going to get to move really— I'm not super far ahead, I guess, but it definitely could have been worse. Let's continue feeding some tokens over here. We only have 2 possible ones. We could try to make another kid if we want to, but I don't. Why don't we have our husband use a brewing token just to get a little bit further ahead of the curve here, and then we can maybe use impetus of love or make some more ingots, or use our ingots to make more tokens on the next turn. We'll see. We're losing some beads here, which I'm not a fan of, but we did get some extra tokens as a result of that anyway. So let me think about this. We have 2 masonry tokens. This might be our best in our best interest here. So let's have our husband use one of these masonry tokens. He'll get a legend point. We'll talk about this owl in a second. We'll have our wife use the other one so that she will move to impetus of love to get this one and give us another 4 legend points. That was pretty good. And then we'll feed brewing tokens to our kids. It's not illegal as long as the parents consent to it. There we go. So every once in a while, you will encounter these situations where basically a tale is going to be told to you. And what this does is sometimes it offers flavor text about the legend of your family, which is interesting. It kind of provides a backstory and keeps you focused on the narrative and adds some fluff, basically. Sometimes it actually will have an impact on your well-being. You can get some extra resources, you can get some extra tokens, and this is all determined based on your personality. But let's click this open. The personality of your character, sorry, not the player. The children silenced their hunger, but the lean years drew their cheeks in. The soil was turning salty and wheat stalks were thin. So we begged the priest for supplemental food, and they gave it to us, and this was just flavor text. I encounter this like every single time, I think, when I play as Ket and Selk, who you always play as for the first generation, and then you have— it varies after that. But yeah, so basically we had a kind of an interesting instance there. I really want to— this is the perfect trade-off here. But I just want to finish a perfect example of a trade-off. I just want to finish my earlier point, which is occasionally there will be those tales that have dialogue trees or dialogue options anyway, and depending on your choice, you'll either be rewarded or punished as a result. And those options open up based on your personality, I believe. So whether you're brave, neighborly, humdrum, charismatic, maverick, etc., etc. So we have an interesting situation. On the one hand, I could snag 6 or 3 legend points by playing the irrigation token on my wife, but this kind of leaves my husband in the lurch. So I think what I want to do actually is play the brewing token on my husband. He'll get a few legend points, and we'll also have another tale happen to him. Then we'll play the ingot on my wife, so we make tokens. I pray to God we don't make another child here. Oh my God! Ket, you're too fertile! And then we'll try to balance out our son a little bit more by giving him a masonry token, and then brewing tokens to the other ones just to keep us with a nice array here. By the way, siblings react to differences in the way you treat them. So if you treat your one child, or if you treat your firstborn in particular, because that's who you're likely going to choose to play as, if you treat your firstborn better than you treat the second and thirdborn and so on, there will be like a sibling rivalry. Sometimes they'll get into fights, and I believe this can have deleterious impacts on all of your children. So you want to treat them exactly the same if at all possible. Sibling rivalries will still develop as they always do, I guess, but that'll help keep things copacetic moving forward. So we have another tale here. Let's see what we've got. The Flood Festival set the farm community dancing and laughing, drinking and praising the gods. Ket participated but felt little joy. He found himself wanting to be alone, so we visited the river temple. The feasting there was more colorful, louder, and tightly crowded. Ket had a vision of sameness, as if everyone in and around the city were already shadows of the dead. All right, pretty dark, Ket, I gotta say, but that's why people don't like hanging out with you anymore. We're gonna make a number of tokens here. You can only have 3 people on a given space, by the way. Oh, you know what? We can do some good stuff with this brewing token here. Yeah, you can only have 3 people on a given space, so sometimes you'll find yourself getting crowded out. And actually, I think I can... Let's set our wife as far ahead as she can possibly go here, which got us a ton of legend points, and is also going to allow us to make good tokens on the next turn. And we'll just feed masonry tokens and irrigation tokens to all of our kids. Yeah, so hopefully you understand what's going on there. Again, eventually some of these instances will have rewards or punishments. The tales, basically, that the owl tells us. So we should be coming fairly... Yeah, you can see here. Actually, our kids are being pretty nice to one another. The child, Tefnut, gave a handmade gift to Tahira, who always praised her. Very nice. But we are coming fairly close to the end of this first generation, if I had to guess. Our people are getting very old up here. And you know what? Why don't we just move Ket a little bit further so we can make ingots on the next turn. And at some point, your focus turns from trying to develop... How should I say this? Your focus turns from trying to get legend points to trying to, like, basically sacrifice the lives of your adults to get more resources for your kids. So if your dad gets eaten by a crocodile... and he's 25, that's real shitty. Oh my god, we just had another kid. But if your dad gets eaten by a crocodile and he's 60, that's not so bad, because these kids are going to be much more well-developed and basically more or less ready to take on the world. So, yeah, this is fine. And we'll just have her move up a little bit. So I'm not really worrying too much about moving vastly forward, because we're probably going to encounter the end of this first generation any second now. Like, every turn brings us closer and closer to Ket and Selk, unfortunately, no longer being alive. Not to spoil anything, but again, we'll just continue making ingots here. So I'm not focused on getting legend points anymore. It's probably a foregone conclusion that we're not going to get 80 before these guys actually die. So we'll just push this guy up again, and then we'll start feeding these to our kids. Oh, we got another tail. This could be interesting, actually. And you'll notice our firstborn son is actually becoming pretty excellent. Like, he's an A+ in everything. You actually can go higher. You can go to AA, as you can see. But one more masonry token, and this guy is going to be really awesome for the next generation, assuming nothing terrible happens here. So let's see what this tale is. It's about Ket and someone else, apparently. In the early morning, Ket and Narmer were fishing to pass the time between bites. They argued about their betters. Ket related tales of times long past when everyone used to work the same task. Is man really so different now? Narmer nodded. Of course not. We drink the same water and relieve it in the same way, only in different receptacles. Interesting. Just more flavor text, I guess. Now, we should be seeing the end of this generation here, if I had to guess. There it is. So, this, like, shattered line here, or torn line, indicates 2 things. One, that this generation is coming to an end, as you can probably guess by looking at our, formerly beautiful couple here. Still beautiful in their own unique ways. I mean, seriously, look at those abs, man. He's like 80. Well done. But we can also, this indicates that we can do a rite of passage on our children. So we can choose which child to play as. I think it's pretty obvious we're going to play as Osahar in the next generation. But what you might want to do is take this opportunity to develop the children a little bit further by, like, just making ingots until your people die. But what I'm actually going to do is just skip right ahead to the rite of passage. But it doesn't necessarily have to be like this. But you can't go past that line with your old generation. So we're going to start playing as Osahar here. But first you've got to go through the rite of passage. So there's 3 possible outcomes here. We can succeed, which gives us a little bit of a bonus to our attributes, I believe. We could fail, which carries a penalty, or we can complete it, but not in a noteworthy way, which I believe is the neutral option. So we'll see what happens. Osahar thought to compete in the race to catch 5 animals. He and the other boys were told, search the farm for 5 elders, listen and bring their stories back, the quicker the better. Attempt the rite. Osahar found 5 elder men and women wearing ceremonial headdresses. Carp whispered, river sustains life. Falcon cried, sun is life. Cow belched, earth gives life. Ram trumpeted, seed starts life. And crocodile growled, death invigorates life. Osahar took the time to listen carefully. Although nearly last to finish, he won respect by answering the questions perfectly. Okay. What would this make us? Thereafter, people would call him Osahar the... Doesn't really seem loving. It doesn't really seem maverick. It kind of seems neighborly, honestly. So maybe we'll go with that. And, if we choose correctly, this will define our personality as we get older, or once we start our adult life, which will be right after we click this button, basically. And this will carry the same kind of penalties and benefits that the personalities carried with the our adult generation, you know, so we'll get different dialogue options for those tales depending on what we take. I'm going to go with neighborly. We'll see if this is right. Success! Beautiful. So we, I believe, chose properly. I believe it's kind of like a dice roll to determine if you have the possibility of succeeding as well. So now we enter another phase of the game, and it's going to continue as it did before throughout the generations with this one little quirk. So we have a kid here, or not a kid, he's probably younger than I am at this point, but seriously, man, you got to tell me what you eat. Now we have to find a mate for him. So you can look at there's only 3 women here, and there's 4 dudes, so it's not impossible to find yourself, unfortunately, in a position where you simply cannot mate, and then you usually play as your sibling in that case. So we're gonna look at these women. There's Aziza with a GPA of A. There's Tame Hotep with a GPA of B-, and Esha with a C+. So obviously we're gonna try to court Aziza here. What's unfortunate is that we don't love any of these women, and they don't seem to love us, at least right off the bat. So we won't get that impetus of love leapfrog ability that we had in the last generation unless we grow to love one another as time goes on. So we're going to play our brewing token. All you got to do is land on the same space that they're on, and you'll get at least a courtship attempt here. So yeah, she's an A. We're probably at least an A, considering my skills, so we'll court her. Let's see. Osahar ended his work differently that day. Instead of falling onto the pile of straw in his crude shelter and tearing into stale barley frat bread, Osahar proposed to Aziza. Maybe a woman could remove the bland taste from his life. Aziza was happy to accept. Her parents were getting old and alone. She would not be able to feed herself, let alone feed her parents. So we've got jealousy and some friendship. Friends boost us forward. I've never actually encountered a jealous person. I believe that this is new new since the beta version that I played, at least. So jealous people block us. And I'm not sure what else they entail, but obviously we have friends and enemies. So it's kind of cool how this simulates the social structure as well. So, you know, we're up here. Do we love each other? No, we don't love each other yet. So we can't really get that much further. But I'm probably going to call it quits on this Let's Look At of 7 Grand Steps here. So I should probably talk about my meta impressions of the game. And I'll just, play a little bit while I do, just so you can have something interesting to look at in the background. But yeah, 7 Grand Steps is now available on Steam for $15. And I think... You know what? Let's try to have a kid here. Let's see if this works out for us. Because, it's not great. We won't have... Oh, we did. Good. We don't have a ton of resources, but I want to start making this kid as early as possible so that obviously it can be better in the long run. But yeah, so 7 Great Steps is available for $15 on Steam. It is also probably available on Mousechip's website. I believe the developer's name is Keith Nemitz. So I will post a link there. If you want to support the developer, best way, obviously, as Penny Arcade Report mentioned earlier this week, is to buy the game on direct from the developer so that Steam kind of doesn't get the cut that they normally get. Not to say that Steam doesn't provide a service, because I definitely believe that they do. But anyway, that's neither here nor there within the context of this video. Anyway, check the link to the video description if you want to pick it up. What I will say, so I'm playing this. This is the full version of the game. I don't know how it differs from the beta. To be honest with you, there have been only superficial differences that I've encountered so far. There is a free demo on the website, which you can check out. But I'm content to offer a positive review and recommendation to 7 Grand Steps with the caveat, and it's a very important caveat, that this is a niche title, I believe, that is not going to appeal to everybody. So I would definitely encourage you, before you buy it, check out the developer's website and pick up the free demo to see if this is your cup of tea, because I would rather, have you do your own due diligence than simply, complain to me as if, I gave you a bad recommendation or something like that. But if you're the kind of person who thinks that you could be intrigued or interested by a game like this, which is certainly a little bit unusual, then I would definitely encourage you to check it out. Again, free demo. So what do you have to lose except for your time there? In any case, we can get a few more legend points here. I'm sorry I didn't show up this legend stuff, but again, this just allows you to move further and further ahead, but sometimes it takes longer than other times, I guess. Yeah, overall thoughts, at the very least, this deserves to be kind of admired for its novelty and kind of uniqueness. Is it the most engaging game I've ever played? No, but it is surprisingly addictive, and I think a lot of people out there that are watching this that think that this is up their alley, despite being a little unusual, probably will find that that is indeed the case. So again, encourage you for the 8th time to check out the demo, or the links in the video description to check out the store page on Steam or on the developer's website. As always, thanks for watching. This has been 7 Grand Steps, and I will see you next time.